What does it mean to have a hard time with something? This is an interesting one. It's another expression that doesn't quite mean what the words imply. We'll take a close look at what it means to have a hard time or give a hard time. You can give a hard time too, although I don't recommend it. Oh, hi. I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Jeff, and this is Essential English Expressions, where you learn step by step how to use the expressions and phrasal verbs that will make your English come alive. In this episode, you'll learn how to use the expression have a hard time. You might think that you're the only one having a hard time with languages. Well, don't worry, you're not. Everyone has a hard time, at least sometimes. That's part of the process. Now, let's dive into exactly what that means. Before we dive into the expression, I wanted to remind you that each episode of Essential English Expressions has a webpage with a transcript, translations of keywords, a quiz, and a full-speed version of this audio. There's also a practice area where you can use the expression in a sentence and get personal feedback from me. To get all that, just click the link in the show notes. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Have a hard time. We use this phrase when something is difficult, when we're struggling with something, not because it's impossible, but because it's challenging and takes extra effort to handle. If you're trying to do something, but it's proving difficult, you can say you're having a hard time. Here's something I have a hard time with. I have a hard time with furniture that comes in a box. I have a hard time understanding the instructions. And then I have a hard time following the instructions. I can do it, but it's not easy for me. I have a hard time with it. If you were listening closely, you might have noticed two ways to use have a hard time. First, you can use it to talk about difficulty with an action, like having a hard time understanding the instructions. You can also use it to describe trouble with specific people, things, or situations, like having a hard time with flat pack furniture. Let's take a closer look at each of these two ways to use have a hard time, and then I'll show you what it means to give someone a hard time. We'll start with actions. If you're having trouble with an action, then you can say you're having a hard time plus a verb ending in ing. The verb ending in ing is the thing that's hard for us. For example, if you're on a phone call with someone and you can't hear the other person well, you might say, I'm having a hard time hearing you. That doesn't mean it's impossible to hear the other person, but you're struggling with it. Maybe there's background noise or a bad signal. So this means I'm trying to hear you, I'm trying to understand you, but it's hard for me. Here is the action that's difficult. So we say hearing. I'm having a hard time hearing you. Were you good at math in school? I was good at it, but it didn't come naturally. I had to work at it. So here's something I might have said. I'm having a hard time solving this problem. That means the problem is hard for me. I'm working at it. I haven't given up, but it's hard. I still hope to get it right, but I'm having trouble. I'm having a hard time solving this problem. So in these examples, we've used have a hard time plus an ing verb. Another way to use have a hard time is when you're facing challenges with a specific person, thing, or situation. In these cases, we usually say having a hard time with, and then add the thing that's causing difficulty. Let's go back to the math problem. You might say, I'm having a hard time with calculus. That was me. I was really good at math right up until calculus. I studied that in high school and then in college. I definitely had a hard time with calculus. That's a thing, calculus. It's a kind of math. So I can say, I had a hard time with plus the thing, calculus. Do you live in an older house or a newer house? If you live in an older house, you will relate to this example. I once lived in a condominium building in Chicago, and it was an old building. It was probably 75 or 80 years old at the time. And we, the owners, had a hard time with the roof. The roof caused us a lot of trouble. There were leaks, cracks, and it always seemed like we had another issue to fix. We faced challenges with the roof, so we say we really had a hard time with that roof. Sometimes it's people who give us a hard time. Do you have a roommate now? If not, think back to a time when you shared a house or an apartment. Did you always get along? Did you always see eye to eye? If not, you might have said, I'm having a hard time with my roommate. That means things are not perfect with my roommate. It doesn't mean things are impossible. It doesn't mean you can't work things out. It just means you face challenges with your roommate. Finally, you can say have a hard time in or have a hard time at if there's a specific place. When I was a kid, I had a hard time in science class. That was a subject that was always hard for me. Someone else might say, I'm having a hard time at work these days. So when we say have a hard time with, in, or at, plus a person, place, or thing, we mean the person or thing is giving us trouble. It's not impossible to manage, but it requires patience and effort. So now you know how to say you're having a hard time with something, but now we're going to turn this around. Now we're going to start the sentence with the problem. Think back to the example of the roof. I said that we were having a hard time with our roof. We can turn that around and say our roof was giving us a hard time. Two ways to say the same thing. If you're fighting with your roommate, you can say, my roommate is really giving me a hard time lately. We can't seem to agree on a way to split the household chores. I'm having a hard time with my roommate. My roommate is giving me a hard time. These are two different ways to say the same thing. Now, a word of warning here. Give someone a hard time can have a slightly different meaning depending on the context, so you need to be careful. To give someone a hard time can also be a playful way of teasing or joking with a person. For example, if a colleague gives you a pile of work to do at 4 o'clock on Friday, the colleague might say, "I'm sure you can finish all this work by the end of the day." But that's a friendly joke. The colleague might smile and say, "I'm just giving you a hard time. You can do it next week." So if you say that a person is giving you a hard time, or if you're giving someone else a hard time, make sure your tone of voice corresponds to the meaning. "I'm just giving you a hard time" is light and playful, but "my roommate is really giving me a hard time lately" is more serious. So let's review before we end today's lesson. You can use have a hard time if something is challenging. You can say, "I'm having a hard time," plus an ing verb, like, "I'm having a hard time understanding the instructions." You can also say you're having a hard time with something, like, "I'm having a hard time with this math problem." And you can flip it around and say, "This math problem is giving me a hard time," or "My roommate has been giving me a hard time lately." Regardless of how you put it together, a hard time means that something is hard for you. Something is causing you trouble. It's challenging, but it's not impossible. Difficult, yes. Impossible, no. If you're having a hard time mastering any of these English expressions, you're in luck. At plainenglish.com, you can write your own sentences using these expressions, and you'll get human feedback on your work. That way, you can get better little by little without wondering if you're doing it right. This benefit is unlimited. You can write as many sentences as you want. It's all part of our online membership, and you can sign up for a free trial and practice all the expressions that are giving you a hard time. You can do all that at plainenglish.com. That brings us to the end of this episode. Keep up the great work in English. Bye for now. Congratulations on learning another essential English expression. Now you're ready for the next step. Click the link in the show notes to read the transcript, listen to the fast version of the audio, take a quiz, practice what you learned, and even get human feedback on your work. Essential English Expressions is made by Plain English. Plain English is the modern, fun, and effective way to improve your listening, speaking, vocabulary, and writing. See how quickly you can improve. Sign up for free at plainenglish.com. Hey, you're still listening. That's good, because I have a small favor to ask of you. Would you take just a few seconds to leave a rating in your podcast player? Here's why I'm asking. Essential English Expressions is a new podcast, and I worked really hard on it. I personally spent over 150 hours creating this first season, and I made it totally free. I can only afford to make more episodes if this first season is a success. So that means I need ratings and reviews to spread the word. So if you think I deserve it, give the show a 5-star rating in the app you're listening on right now. If you're on Apple Podcasts, you can also leave a comment in your review. If you're on Spotify, you can rate the show and leave a comment right in this episode. You can do that in English or in your own language. It doesn't matter. Thanks so much in advance. I really appreciate the help.